I put these up on YouTube, and it's amazing. Hundreds of people will view it. I had one video recently that was viewed 3,500 times. So you get them, you know, when it goes viral. So, and this one goes viral. A lot of people like doing this. Okay. Ghost urban legends and tall tales of Louisville. I always give Tim Miller credit because I use some of his photographs also in my presentation, even though he did them for my book, but very haunting photographs that he tends to do. So do you believe in ghosts? About 50% of the population believes something weird is going on out there. So what creates a ghost? A traumatic experience, a murder, accidental death, something very horrible that happens to someone tends to leave a ghostly apparition, if you will, so they say. And how the ghosts appear, as noted, an apparition, cold spots, unexplained noises, strange electrical malfunctions, which we had here earlier on my equipment, and then shadows and orbs. So we'll discuss all of these as we go through the presentation. So they say New Orleans is the most haunted city in America. Not sure if y'all have been to New Orleans or taken any of the ghost tours down there, but those tours always seem to start in a gift shop and end in a gift shop or a tavern or whatever. To me, I did not experience anything unnatural taking those ghost tours, but their cemeteries gave me raised the hair on the back of my neck. If you've ever seen their cemeteries, they're all buried above ground due to the water table there in New Orleans. So the mausoleums are really kind of eerie a bit. But to me, the most haunted city is Savannah, Georgia. Not sure if y'all taken the ghost. They made a whole industry out of ghosts there in Savannah. Tons of ghost tours, and they will put the hair up on the back of your neck. So anyway, Savannah. And the reason for that is, in the center of town, the old town, used to be a cemetery. And they dug everyone up. As the city was expanding, they dug everyone up and moved them to other city cemeteries. You think they got them all out? No. And we have a similar situation here in Louisville at Baxter Square. Some of you may be familiar with it there at 11th and Jefferson. But that used to be a former cemetery as well. That was called the Pioneer Cemetery. And Mayor Baxter back there wanted a park. So guess what he told the families to do? Dig everyone up, move them out to other cemeteries. Think they got them all out? But anyways, speaking of one of the residents that may still be there, so we have George Keats. He was a English poet, and his brother, well, he was George Keats lived here in Louisville, but his brother John Keats was the poet in England. But George Keats, his brother, came to Louisville, had a big house on Walnut Street, now Muhammad Ali, of course, but it was called the Englishman's Palace. And George Keats lived here in Louisville. There is his house, the Englishman's Palace. It's sort of where Stewart's department store is now, if you're familiar with that former location. We in Louisville always reference things where things used to be. Now the Embassy Suites, I believe, it's there. So anyways, George Keats had a daughter named Rosalind Keats, and she wasn't very old when she passed away. She was about 4 or 5 years old when she died, and she was buried there in the old Pioneer Cemetery. And when they moved everyone out, they could not find Rose. Rose did not get reburied. And that's part of the problem when they reinter folks out of cemeteries. Children's grave sites are the most difficult to find because they deteriorate so rapidly, so quickly, and just difficult to find. So anyways, we think that there are, in fact, I know of one building there around Baxter Square that they actually hired a medium to come in to talk to the ghost, to get the ghost out of the building. And they literally had a sort of an exorcist, if you will, to come in to get the ghost out. So we think that there's still some folks hanging around there at Baxter Square. So who's afraid of ghosts? Let's talk about some Ghostbusters. Of course, I saw this the Ghostbuster ambulance there in downtown Louisville a few years ago. Had to take a picture of that, of course. But as some of you may know, the star of that movie of Ghostbusters was Bill Murray, and he filmed the movie here in Louisville, and which was Stripes. And a number of those scenes took place at the Silbach Hotel, and that's where Louisville's most famous ghost lives, the Lady in Blue. I take it most of you have probably heard of the Lady in Blue, and so her name is Patricia Wilson, and her body was found at the bottom of one of the elevator shafts there in the Silbach in July of 1936. We do not know if it was an accidental death, a suicide, or a murder. No one was ever charged in her death, but ever since, her ghost, the Lady in Blue, has been floating about the Silbach ever since. Numerous people have seen her. Here's the lobby of the Silbach. I knew a former concierge there at the Silbach, and she told me of numerous tales of middle-aged men coming down to the lobby in the middle of the night saying there's a Lady in Blue up in their hotel room. And I just said, well, they're concocting a story for their wives back home as to why a Lady in Blue was up in their hotel room. But anyway, so yeah, a lot of folks still see the Lady in Blue. I think the Silbach is kind of trolling us a little bit. If you go up on the mezzanine level there next to the elevator bank, you'll see this portrait. Now it looks a little light green, but it's actually blue. And Tim Miller did not take that photograph, I did. But anyways, it's a light blue Lady in Blue, and so I think they're kind of having a little fun with us there by doing that. So as most of you know, we're here because of the Falls of the Ohio. And back in the day, before the river was navigable, you literally could walk across the Ohio during the summer months. The pool level was pretty shallow, and it allowed large animals like bison, elk, and bear to cross the river at that point. And of course, whenever you have a lot of, and by the way, the animals created our streets. If you're driving down the street and it takes a weird turn, well, that's the reason the way the animals went. But Frankfurt Avenue and Preston Highway and some of the other streets in the area here were formed by animal traces, the bear and the elk and all. But anyways, whenever you have a large accommodation of animals, you have people that like to hunt them. So, who were the hunters back then? They were the Native Americans, the indigenous people. Where are they buried at here in Louisville? Where are the indigenous people buried? And how were they buried? Does anyone know that? Well, they were usually buried in Indian mounds, correct? Some of you may be familiar with Indian mounds. In fact, we have a very large Indian mound out at US 42 at the Sutherland neighborhood. They actually have a sign there telling the kids not to play on the mound. But we have some mounds around the area. And one of them was in downtown Louisville here, right at 6th and Muhammad Ali. You see where that red star is, there was an Indian mound right there. And to the north of that was a large body of water. Back in the 1830s, they had a lot of mosquito-borne illnesses, and so they decided to get rid of all the standing water. Guess how they got rid of that mound? Right into the pond there, if you will. There was a Courier Journal story talking about how remains and various Indian artifacts were tossed into the pond there. So what's there today? Well, right there now is a parking lot, but just to the north of it is the state office building. And I've talked to occupants of the building who do say that weird things do occur there, especially late at night. So maybe you do not disturb the dead, quote unquote. That might create a ghost. The Denver airport is perhaps the most haunted airport in the country. If you're familiar with it, I've probably traveled through the Denver airport. It's over 50 square miles, and when they were building it, they had a lot of, they disturbed a lot of Indian burial sites there on the property. And you may recall the baggage claim that had all sorts of issues with it, and they attributed that perhaps the ghost in the system to disturb that infrastructure of the airport. By the way, there's a website actually that you can go on to, and they talk about all the ghostly things that go on here at the Denver airport. We have a similar thing going on here in Louisville. here's the airport, Muhammad Ali International now they call it. And if you look real closely, you'll see a green spot right there. That's an Indian map. We have UPS planes navigating around an Indian burial site. In fact, the whole airport property was a major Native American village. A few years ago, the archaeologists went out there and did a lot of excavations and found all sorts of indigenous artifacts from the Indians back then. So anyways, yeah, our airport, so if you lose your luggage, could be because of a ghost in the system. As to some tall tales, Hogan's Fountain, they say that the little Pan statue up there gets down and runs around the basin at midnight on New Year's Eve. Now, if you know what goes on at New Year's Eve at night, there are spirits about, but they're not the ghostly type. And so you might see something weird up there if you're imbibing on midnight on New Year's Eve. Same thing with the old Castleman statue. They said that the horse would change its stance at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve. Iroquois Park is said to have a headless woman roaming around. Why, I don't know, but I'm not going up there at midnight to find out. Now then, perhaps the biggest tall tale of Louisville is the public trestle. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Goat Man legend that haunts that area, supposedly. If you don't know where it's out the Tellersville Road, just south of the Gene Snyder Freeway there, near the parklands of Floyd's Fork. If you don't know what a Goat Man looks like, go to the 21st Century Hotel. They've got one on the bar area there, so you don't have to go out to the public trestle, or you can Google one on the internet. But as you know, unfortunately, a number of people have lost their lives out there trying to find the Goat Man. You go out in the middle of the trestle there, and a train comes. You don't have much luck to get out of the way. So do not go out looking for the Goat Man. Just Google them. They say the Palace Theater is haunted. A workman there allegedly died of a heart attack and haunts the theater. Cave Hill Cemetery. A lot of people think that there are ghosts in a cemetery. As the night security guards at Cave Hill have told me, why would a ghost be haunting a cemetery? They want to be out haunting you, the living. So the security guards at Cave Hill have never seen a ghost in the evening. I've been there at night, and there are no ghosts in Cave Hill. However, you might see some strange sights at Cave Hill. This is one of the monuments there, and these people are dressed for the afterlife. They're winged, and there's a name for these. I don't know if someone knows, let me know. But they're carrying swords and the wings and to fight off evil spirits in the afterlife at this monument in Cave Hill. Of course, Harry Collins is there. Some of you may be familiar with that statue there in Cave Hill in the modern section. And Harry, I always say, he was a mentor to Lance Burton, Louisville's famous magician. Harry Collins worked with Lance's mother at Frito-Lay Company and did some early magic tricks with Lance, got him indoctrinated into magic, and for a lot, Lance does some great shows out in Las Vegas now. But whenever we talk about magic, we always have to talk about Harry Houdini and the occult and things of this nature. So I connect this to Harry Collins as well, the statue, because if you look closely, you see some images here. You see a rainbow circle and a white circle here, and these are called orbs, O-R-B-S. Photographers call these reflections off of dust particles in the air that reflect off the lens of the camera that create these orbs. Ghostologists think these are spirits, that these are ghosts. For what it's worth, I've taken hundreds of photographs at Cave Hill, and I've never had orbs appear in my photographs other than this one here. There's even a rainbow orb there. Normally orbs are white and not rainbow. So maybe Harry's trying to send us a message from beyond there. This is Colonel Sanders' grave site at Cave Hill. And there's the Colonel. And he's kind of a ghostly image as well. We have some fun him because he got to visit his grave site before he went on to the afterlife as well. I'm not sure about you, but it's kind of haunting to go visit your own grave site. Not sure if you all have done that or not, but anyway, the colonel was able to do it. He passed away in 1980. Eastern Cemetery, they say that's haunted, as noted earlier. Most ghosts do not haunt cemeteries. However, this is the burial vault there in Eastern. But sometimes you have grave robbing going on. Supposedly there was some grave robbing that went on at Eastern, which again, you don't disturb the dead. And if so, you might create a ghost out of that. So now then, what Louisville institution has a grave robbing history? Medical school, U of L, that is correct. U of L Med School was grave robbing back when it started. James Guthrie at the old med school there, he brought over the Transylvania medical staff from Lexington, claiming we have more bodies to work on here than Lexington did. And so they were able to find them. Usually they went across the river over into southern Indiana for their grave robbing. But who is buried on the campus of U of L? We've got Louis Brandeis, the Supreme Court Justice, is buried there. And he and his wife were just here to the right of the main entrance door. They were cremated and placed there. Now in my church, St. Francis of Rome, a few years ago, I was going to do a book on the church. There's the book there. And as I was doing oral histories of some of the older parishioners to get their history of the church, they said, are you going to include the ghost of St. Francis of Rome? It's like, okay, what's that about? So first, before I do that, in doing the book, I took some photographs to include within the book, and after I saw this photograph, I said, oh my gosh, by the way, this was at midnight mass Christmas Eve. And I said, gosh, I can't use that photograph, because if you look very closely, there's orbs everywhere in that photograph, a lot of them. So why wouldn't you be a ghost at midnight on Christmas Mass, right? Also, this is Father Jerry Eifler there. He has orbs floating about him. So here's the old school there at St. Francis of Rome. And the Sisters of Charity were the faculty at the school. And one of them was named Sister Francesca. And she boarded an Allegheny airliner in August of 1968 and flew to Charleston, West Virginia. I'm not sure if y'all flown into that airport or not, but it's up on a mountainside. Back in 68, 53, 4 years ago, they did not have the proper navigational equipment that we do today. And the pilot flew right into the hillside, killing all on board, including Sister Francesca. Here's a Courier Journal article about it. And August 10th, 1968. Ever since that day, parishioners at St. Francis of Rome claim they have seen her pushing a broom around after events there at the old school. I have not seen her. I've been there numerous times, never seen Sister Francesca, but people just like you have told me they have seen her there. So I'll let you take that with a grain of salt if you like, but there's some eyewitnesses. St. Martin de Tours Church up there in the Phoenix Hill neighborhood. Very beautiful church. And if you've ever been to St. Martin de Tours, you know up by the altarway there, they have some enclosed skeletons of some martyrs back from the Roman days. And I always thought that they put these folks here to keep the kids in line, to keep them amused, if you will, during church. But yeah, that's kind of haunting to me to be there at Mass and to see skeletons up there on the altar. That's not what you normally see at a church. But here at 4th Street Live in the Cathedral of the Assumption, 4th Street Live was also built on a cemetery. The old Prather Square was there, Prather family home. And of course they moved everyone out, right? Do you think they got them all out? Well, if you go to 4th Street Live like at 2 a.m. in the morning, you might see some spirits roaming about. But I'm never there at 2 a.m., but supposedly could be. And then, of course, at the Cathedral of the Assumption, there are burial crypts below that, where some of the archbishops are buried below the cathedral. So there are some cemeteries still in downtown Louisville. The Brennan House, which is right around the corner here at 5th and Chestnut. If you're familiar with this used to be an all residential neighborhood. There's only like 3 houses or 4 houses left from the original neighborhood of Old Louisville here. The Brennan House is one of those. And when the Brennans, Thomas and Anna Brennan, they had 7 children, but their children had no children. So they had children, but the children had no children. So when the last child died, which was Dr. Thomas Brennan back in 1962 or so, and he passed away, all of their earthly possessions were left at the Brennan House. It's like a time capsule. All their furniture, clothing, things like that is still there at the Brennan House. And there they are. That's where they're buried out at Cave Hill Cemetery. But again, there were no heirs to take all of their earthly possessions and sell them or have an auction. So everything's still there at the Brennan House. And they say that the Brennans like to come back periodically. You can see shadows up in the windows of them coming back to visit all their stuff. So again, let you decide on whether or not that's haunted. They say the Bell of Louisville is haunted, but again, whenever you go to a visitor attraction, they say it's haunted, perhaps not. I've talked to all the staff there at the Bell, and they claim it's not haunted. They've not seen any evidence of that. They say James Graham Brown haunts the Brown Hotel that he built. He used to live there in the Brown Hotel. Again, if the Seelbach has a ghost, guess what? The Brown's got to have a ghost, right? Of course, J. Graham Brown did a lot of great things for the city, the Louisville Zoo, Cancer Center, and the Kentucky Derby Museum. The Peterson-Dumino house, they say, is haunted. That the lady in white is there. So who is the lady in white? There she is. And there she flies off. So the question is, there's one of Tim's haunting photographs of the Peterson-Dumino house. And if you look there in the cupola, the light is on, which means the lady in white is there. So the question is, who is the lady in white? So I've been to the Peterson-Dumino house since the early 1980s. Numerous meetings there. Had no idea who the lady in white was. Didn't know of any tragic death there or anything. I said, who is that? So when I was doing the book, I said, I've got to find out who the lady in white is, right? So who might she be? So let's go to Cave Hill Cemetery. Look at the Peterson gravesite there, the family plot. We see Joseph Peterson that's buried there. You can see his monument. You can read it pretty easily, all his information. But his wife, Carrie, which is buried right adjacent to him, you don't see all of her data has weathered off. So that's kind of strange. That's different. So let's keep looking around. So there's Joseph and Carrie Peterson. And then off to the side is someone named Jacob Lindenberger. What's the Lindenbergers doing here? Where is their connection to the Peterson family? Turns out his first wife was named also Carrie Peterson. Carrie Peterson Lindenberger was her name. And she's buried in the back portion of the plot there. I said, well, that's kind of strange. What happened to her? How did she die? Because he married again, and his second wife is buried next to Jacob there. So what's going on with that? So that's Carrie Peterson Lindenberger's headstone. So you can go on Cave Hill Cemetery if you're interested in knowing where anyone's buried. They have a little search engine down here. You put the name in there and it pops up various information. Here's what you would normally see. So I put in Carrie Lindenberger, and right there, she passed away on October 1st, 1866. Okay? So having done some similar sorts of research, I said, well, I'm going to keep looking to see if there's anyone else that died similar on that date. And sure enough, down at the bottom, there's Jacob Lindenberger, August 24th, 1866, about 5 to 6 weeks prior to Carrie's death. Okay, well, that got me interested. Next, going down the list, I see Richard Lindenberger, same date as Jacob died. And there's one more, Thomas, the same date as the other two. Put all that together and I called Cave Hill and I said, what was the ages of these Lindenbergers that died? They were all infants. So my conclusion is Carrie died of childbirth, triplets, 1866. So there's a traumatic death, tragic thing on the Peterson property there. And so my assumption is Carrie is the lady in white. So here are some PD house photographs. All these photographs. I take it everyone's been to the PD house. And one last thing about this. So Frankfurt Avenue had beautiful mansions, just like Broadway used to have beautiful mansions, but Frankfurt Avenue had all these beautiful mansions lining it there. They've all been demolished, except for one, the Peterson Dumino house. It still stands, and so the lady in white protects the Peterson Dumino house. By the way, the lady in white, she protects children of the neighborhood. If a child gets lost in the neighborhood, wanders onto the property, the story is the lady in white comes out, takes the child by the hand, and tells it that the mother will be there shortly to pick it up. We have several similar stories like that. By the way, a few years ago, at the Louisville Historical League, we were having a board meeting there late one evening, and all the board members were sitting around the dining room table there, and out of the windows, it wasn't just me, but all the other board members saw the same thing. A white flash went across the windows. Like, whoa, what was that? We went out on the porch, couldn't find anything. And I've talked to numerous caterers who have done functions here at the PD house who claim they have seen the lady in white after events floating about the house. So, again, let you decide if that's the correct thing or not. There she is, the light's on, and there she goes. But the lady in white. A couple other things, bed and breakfast. They always have a ghost at bed and breakfast. It seems like almost every bed and breakfast has a ghost. Same thing, the best one is here at the Samuel Gray House, the Bashford Manor bed and breakfast. They have a lot of Civil War ghosts there. The Union had an encampment there on the property, and supposedly they see Union soldiers periodically there at bed and breakfast. Here's the Tucker House. They claim they have ghosts. Of course, Ghost Central is Waverly Hills Sanatorium, where due to tuberculosis, hundreds, maybe thousands died here. There's one of them flying off. There's Waverly Hills, very haunting. I've taken the tour out there. I didn't see anything in particular ghostly related, but a lot of people do. In fact, I was with someone just this past week who said that they were walking around the facility and they looked up at the tower and claimed they saw a woman in white in one of the windows there. So, but she claims she saw it. So, Waverly Hills is way out Dixie Highway next to Bobby Nichols Golf Course. And they have a lot of tours out there. David Dominy, of course, does all the Ghosts of Old Louisville, and I don't talk about Ghosts of Old Louisville. Let him do that. I think the most haunted house in Louisville is this one here, the Culberson Mansion over in New Albany. Very beautiful interior, but I've talked to numerous staff there at the Culberson who say all sorts of weird things. You name it, it happens there. They have cold spots, they smell cigar smoke, electrical malfunctions, everything ghostly related happens here at the Culberson. It freaks them out a lot, they say, what goes on at the Culberson. Here's some more Tim Miller photographs. And they had probably the best haunted house feature there as well. So if you're looking for something to do this weekend, you go over and check out their carriage house, which they've decorated as a haunted house. Now then, the Olmsted, I mentioned earlier that I've experienced electrical malfunctions. When I do this presentation, I've done several presentations of the haunted houses at the Olmsted, and the equipment sometimes does not work. I have to go to another room to get it to work. or ghosts playing tricks on me. I don't know, but it's strange that that's the only, other than that, now we had a little episode just before the presentation today, and I understand this might have some possible things hanging around. They like to play tricks on us. Now then, I have had a number of paranormal experiences, and y'all may have had paranormal as well. Paranormal is when you think someone from the other side is trying to help you do something or find something. Well, I had a situation here with the great historian Sam Thomas. Sam passed away in 2012 of cancer, very sad. He wrote over 20 Louisville history books, did a great job. And I was unfortunately not in the country at the time. I was over in Italy when I got a text saying Sam had passed away. So when I got back to the States, I called up his wife, Debbie, said, Debbie, sorry I couldn't make the visitation, couldn't make the funeral. I was out of the country. And then at the very end of the conversation, I told her, I said, hey, you know, I know Sam's done all sorts of books. Has he done a book that's ready to be published, but not published yet? She goes, oh gosh, Steve, he's got it all ready to go to the printer, but I have no money to get the book published. I said, okay, well, Debbie, I'll think about it, see if there's anything I can do. Literally a day or two later, I get another call from a very wealthy Louisvillian saying, hey, Steve, we talked some history back and forth, and then he goes at the end of the conversation, hey, I just hired a researcher. We're going to do a book on the Olmsted Park system. I said, whoa, time out. Sam's already done that book. It's ready to go to the printer, but his wife Debbie has no money to get it implemented. Can you and so I put those two together, and that was produced. The Origins of Louisville Olmsted Parks and Parkways, printed in 2013. I got to write the editorial or the book review in the Courier Journal for the book there. So was Sam up there pulling strings, making sure that his last book got printed? Do not know, but it was just a strange series of coincidences that happened for that book. If I had not been out of the country or whatever, and certain phone calls didn't happen, maybe this book would never have happened. But anyways, we were able to get it done for Sam. Now then, has anyone here seen a ghost? Well, we'll take one at a time. Usually no one wants to raise their hands. But yes, if you're here in the center, if you've seen a ghost, yes.
A couple of times.
Okay, was it at your house or not here, I hope?
Well, yes, in my house, and then over in, across the river in Louisville.
Yes, you're over here. Okay. Good deal. And someone else in the back here? No one else had? Well, whenever I did my K-Ville tours, I would say a similar thing. Has anyone of my tour group, has anyone seen a ghost? And one memorable occasion, there was this couple on the tour, and the wife kept elbowing the husband, saying, you gotta talk, you gotta talk. Finally, we in the group said, okay, tell us the ghost story. So here's the ghost story. They own a farm over in southern Indiana, and strange things started happening in their farmhouse. Lights would go on and off unexpectedly. The children saw apparitions walking through the house. They had dogs. They put them in cages. The cages in the middle of the night would open up, and the dogs would roam around the house. So all sorts of strange things going on there. So they decided to hire a medium to come over and just check things out, what might be going on here. So the medium comes over and goes out, walks around the property there, and then comes back in and says, you've got to talk to the chieftain to tell him you mean no harm. And what they were doing is they were building a tennis court out there on their property. So the farmer said, okay, whatever. So he went out there and told the chieftain, met his tribe, no harm. They're building this tennis court, sorry for the disruption, blah, blah, blah. And ever since that day, they did not have any other disruptions within their house. So again, whether or not you realize that's a true story or not, but they were very factual about it. And so that was a very haunting tale of a first-hand experience there. But again, they were disturbing a Native American burial site. That's basically what they were doing. So now then, where do you go see dead people tonight? Hillcrest Avenue. If you've not seen Hillcrest, it's fantastic this year. You've got to go see it. Me and my wife are going to walk it this evening, I think. But tons of people up and down. It's in Crescent Hill if you're not familiar with it. And it's just spectacular. Now these are some old photographs. This is not what you'll see tonight, but everyone has decorated their yards and it's just really great. It's just phenomenal stuff. Now this is my house. The kids in the neighborhood call this the Pumpkin Palace. I've been doing this little pumpkin decoration on my tour of my house in the past 34 years, believe it or not. We've lived there that long. And so now to paraphrase the Cowardly Lion, now do you believe in ghosts? Boo. Okay, so there. Yes.
Steve, I did want to point out, I live in a 140-year-old house, and we're very disappointed.
There's no ghosts.
We've never seen
But no tragic death.
So we
or
need
anything
someone
of
to
that
help
nature.
out.
Yeah. Yes. It's unfortunate, I do a lot of house researches and things like this, and yeah, sometimes when you're dealing in genealogy of houses, you do come across situations like that, tragic things that might have happened there. Anything else about that? Well, anyways, y'all have been a good audience and everything, and I will put this up on YouTube. It'll be underneath the Louisville Historical League page on YouTube, and you can subscribe to that. We have over 60 videos on there of Louisville history. If you're really into Louisville history, we have we video all of our presentations and all that. So thank y'all very much.
Well, thank you, Steve. I neglected to say that Steve is a longtime president of the Louisville Historical League, so if you have any interest, you might go on their website and join
Yeah.
up.
Sure. Are there any questions or no?
Yeah, I still have questions. Yes.
I have a few, but I'll just ask two.
Sure. Go ahead.
So do ghosts, do they come back only for traumatic or bad situations, or do they come back for happy reasons, like to
It
bring
depends
about-
on which ghostologist you're talking about. Some people think they're all about this all the time. I'm of the opinion that they're a traumatic experience, but there are some folks that, and even paranormal, I even think paranormal, like I mentioned with Sam Thomas, we have them. I think everyone, for what it's worth, has those type of experiences that you think someone from the other side might be assisting you in something. But anyways, but yeah, I believe in the traumatic experience because that makes more sense, but we won't know for certain until we are there.
Right, right. And,
So.
and just one more, if a particular building is, would haunted be the right term, or
Yeah, haunted.
There's activity, and that building gets destroyed, do those ghosts then go to another building, or do they just leave?
Well, a good example would be Baxter Square. The ghosts still haunt that area over there. So yeah, I do think they still remain. And I do hear that if you tell the ghost to go away, to explain to them, bring a medium out, that the ghost will depart, from what I've heard. So you can have someone come and do an exorcist of your house. If you've got, or maybe of this building, you may want to have a medium come in and check it out. But
They have had.
have you had someone in here?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Off the record.
Off the record. Yeah, I'm not taping it anymore. So, yeah, any other questions about all that? But it's interesting. For what it's worth, I got a lot of my ghost stories. I've done numerous books, and one of them was called not haunted, but historic houses of Louisville. And so when I went to these historic homes to do their histories, the owner would be telling me all these ghost stories, and I said, well, I can't put those in my history book. They think I'm a nut. So that's when I decided to do Haunted Houses of Louisville. And so if anyone's interested, there are a lot more ghost stories in here, $5 if you're interested. So, but that's how I ended up in doing this, was actually history, and it turned into haunted. So, other things? Yep.
I can just say one last thing,
Sure.
just one last thing. I'm gonna buy your book, and they let me look at it yesterday, and it's not super thick, but you've got a lot of great pictures in there.
Yeah.
And a lot of good stuff. I was reading on ghost tourism as well, which I was really interested in, but that's a little
Yeah,
plug there.
Savannah, has anyone been to Savannah and done the Savannah tours? Agree they've got some good stuff there, don't they? If you ever get to Savannah, check it out. They do a good job. New Orleans, not so much. I would not recommend their tours. Well, anyways, good deal. By the way, I've taken, ghost tours throughout the United States. I've been to Boston, they have a witches ghost tour up there. Actually, the witches of Salem actually started in Boston, they were hanging them in Boston, then they decided, oh, we don't like them here, so they went to Salem and started hanging them up there. But yeah, they say the witches haunt the commons up there in Boston, so.
Thank you again.
Good deal.